Welcome to Beyond Vows Veils, your luxury wedding experience. Our podcast, I feel, is a treasure trove of inspiration and insight for newly engaged couples. Join us as we have captivating stories, expert insight, and real wedding experiences that you can listen and learn from. Welcome back, everyone, to Beyond Vows and Veils. On today's episode, we're going to be diving into the fascinating world of meteorology and weather forecasting. So joining me today is Kevin Niewood, who is a seasoned meteorologist with over a decade of experience in the field. He graduated from Florida State University in 2012, has a Bachelor of Science degree in meteorology, and has since carved out a distinctive career path. So for the past 12 years, Kevin has been a leader in the industry, spending the initial 5 years as a broadcast meteorologist before transitioning to a freelance weather forecaster. So his passion for bridging the gap between meteorologists and the broader community is what led him to establish his company called Weather Plan in 2022. So he is pioneering an innovative aimed delivery of personalizing weather forecasting services for special events. So if you are someone who is trying to figure out a good contingency plan for your wedding, meaning if it's going to potentially rain in your area, or you just want to make sure that you're playing it safe with such a big investment for the weekend. As we know, Mother Nature is the one thing that we can't control when it comes to weddings. This is a really great and insightful episode to be listening to, and I hope you enjoy. Thank you. Hi everyone, welcome back to Beyond Vows and Veils. I'm your host, Brittany Ellis, and today we are super excited to talk to Kevin, who is in the meteorology, expertise field, and we'd love to kind of chat with. Sorry, I'm like totally ignorant. Science was not my forte in school.
Not a problem at all.
So obviously, Kevin, we're so excited to talk to you. But before we dive in, share a little bit about yourself and your journey. How did you get to being involved with weather?
Oh my gosh.
And monitoring that?
It's so funny. Every time I'm asked that question, I try to think of a point in my life where I just had that aha moment. Mm-hmm. And I realized I never had it. I was just born with it. I've never really met too many people who can say that. From my youngest days, I'm just, looking up at the sky. I mean, my dad would always remember fondly me just looking up. I mean, my first word was fan. I figured because the fan was in the way of me looking at the sky. So,
oh, wow. That's really cool.
Literally all my life, I've wanted to be a meteorologist. I have always been fascinated by the weather, hurricanes, tornadoes, lightning, which we get a lot of here in Florida. So yes. That's always captivated me. And and then in my high school years, I learned about Florida State University, which, in-state tuition's a lot better than out-of-state. And it happened to be one of the premier schools in the country for meteorology. And I knew right away, that's where I'm going to go get my Bachelor of Science in Meteorology. And I did it. It was hard because all the math and science, but passion drove me right through it. And from there, I went on to broadcast for a few years, and interestingly enough, through a little family project, because like I said, I never had that aha moment of I wanted to do this. I just kind of was born with it. And then one of my cousins wanted to do like a little family collage of our history. And we happened to have my grandpa's old papers. We knew he served in World War II. We just didn't know where or with which branch. And when we did that collage, I discovered that my grandpa was a weather observer in the Army Air Corps in World War II, which number one passion, meteorology, and number two passion, aviation. And that blew my mind. So, I guess I was just born with it.
You're on the right universal track.
You're right. It was just meant to be somehow. The wires in my brain, that's just how they were programmed, I guess. And so I pursued broadcast for a few years, but that's really where I came to discover kind of the problem, the only problem with meteorology and how information is disseminated to the public. It's not direct enough. And it's not that like TV meteorologists give out bad information. They give out great information. It's just that there's the quirks of the business that a lot of people don't know about, which is in order to call yourself the most accurate weather forecast on television, you need some way to verify that forecast. So the way that the industry does it is through the National Weather Service. So how does the National Weather Service keep track of temperatures? Well, they got their instruments, and where are they? They're at the airport. So that's the problem with TV weather forecasting, and I saw that problem because I would get a lot of calls saying, "Hey, I got this event going on. Can you tell me if rain's coming?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to pull up the radar," and bam, I would be able to tell them, and it was very valuable because it's not just a one-size-fits-all weather forecast at 5 o'clock. It was for this person at this time and their location, and so I kind of had that little brain aha moment and thought, okay, that could be a business. So I got out of broadcast. I kind of freelanced it for a couple of years because I wanted to, figure out, like, just research and develop like a product, like a service. How can I get this out to people individually and make it useful and valuable? And that's where WeatherPlan was born. Because I've lost count of how many, friends, family members, you name it, ask me, "Hey, Kevin, I see, Hurricane Irma coming or Hurricane Ian is coming my way. Do I need to evacuate?" And I'll get right on it. And I'll do I'll look at my weather models and my research, put together a forecast, and end up saying, "Yep, get out." So
right.
through years of doing that, I was able to pull it all together into a service and decided to call it WeatherPlan. It just kind of came together. I built a website and just kind of put that together. And now I'm expanding into different service industries. And I got to tell you, I had weddings in mind when I developed this because especially for that outdoor moment, I mean, you want it to be perfect, right? And what's the one thing that humbles us all? It's the weather. That's the one thing we can't control, but we can't forecast it. So that's what I want to do with WeatherPlan. It just ties all my passion of how I came to be into one service, and I can help people with it and just pass on peace of mind to you and wedding planners like you who can then pass it on to their clients. That's pretty much how I got here today.
I love it. Kevin, you have such a really cool background, and thank you so much for sharing how you've come full circle, because I know when you reached out to me initially, I was like, this is so cool. And I was like, do you want to be on this podcast with me? Like, let's jump on. Let's talk about this. I need to know more information. But honestly, I think it's such a great tool. And for any couples that are listening, I've had a lot of our listeners reach out to me, be like, I listen to you on my morning commute and I love it. And it's so sweet. And I'm really so grateful for that. But if you're in the car, or you're listening, or you're queuing in right now, Kevin essentially is a huge tool to include in your tool belt of wedding planning things, because let me just kind of give some context. If you're a couple of ours, you're spending, or really any couple out there, you're spending a good amount of money for a weekend for your guests to come and celebrate your union. And hopefully the weather holds up for you. But I've been specializing in South Asian weddings in the state of Florida specifically for, over a decade now. And weather calls are just not fun. They're never fun. They're like the most anxious part of my job is having to be the one that it's got 5 different weather applications open and they're all telling me different things. And I'm like, well, this one says 0% and this one says 20%. I don't know. I'm definitely not a meteorologist. I'm a wedding planner, but I, just like any, civilian out there, I can pull up the app and see kind of, make my best judgment call. And the challenge is, Kevin, and you may or may not know this, is that a lot of the properties have clauses in their agreement that says, hey, if it's 30% or more, we have every right to pull this event inside. And so when you're talking about a client who has made, whatever the dollar figure investment is, and it's banking on the look and the aesthetic and everything being pulled off if it's outdoors, making a weather call is critical. And I always say, if we call it inside, it better rain. Because if we didn't call it inside, if we called it inside and it didn't rain, then, that wasn't the greatest move, right? Because that's the last thing you want to do. So Kevin, talk to us about, like, let's say, we're working with you for a couple and they're, I don't know, 2 weeks out from their wedding, or maybe you can share, when do you start monitoring it? What can the couple expect to receive from you? And where do you feel like you're able to pinpoint and give some accuracy to them making that hard decision?
2 weeks out is definitely where I start. It's towards the tail end of how far we call that short term to medium term forecasting, or medium range, if you will. So I can, at that time frame, start to paint a general picture of, is it going to rain that day? Is it looking like a bad day for rain? Or is it looking like, that looks like a good day, and I'm going to stay on top of it and make sure it stays a good day. Because I love what you said. That's a valuable data point of, if it's 30% chance or more, they're going to want to pull it inside no matter what. And that's exactly what I do. I forecast for you, for the couple listening. I'm doing it for you, for your location at your time. Whereas the weather app, it's being automatically generated by a computer from one weather model based on your zip code. So for me, I'm just doing it for you. And I can start as far as 2 weeks out and give you a good general idea. Is it going to rain that day? Is that a good day for an outdoor event? And then I can refine that going forward through. So what I do is I'll spend a couple hours creating a forecast and just punching out raw numbers. What's the temperature going to be during your event? What's the chance of rain going to be during your event? Is it going to be greater than 30%, where you may have to pull it indoors? Is it going to be less than 30%? I can tell that right from the get-go, and then just boil it down into a very easy to read report, that anybody can read, just like light reading. It's like, okay, this is telling me, is it looking good for an outdoor event that day, or is it looking bad for an outdoor event that day? And then as we get into, say, like the more near term, like 7-day range, then things start getting very exact. I can give you an hourly breakdown of your event. And this includes setup too. Like obviously you got setup days, so I can forecast for that as well and give you hour by hour breakdowns as we get to, say, like a week out. And then from there, it just becomes more and more refined, and everything just becomes more solidified. I become very, very, very sure, like once we get to a week out. And the nice part about this is it's just a lot easier for the couple, because it's not like the generic forecast from the television, which is forecasting for all of, like, say, Miami, and it's really for the airport. Me, I'm doing where I'm forecasting for, it's your event at your location. And so once we're within that 7-day period, then you're really going to get some exact numbers, temperatures, chances of rain, and from there, peace of mind. That's really the key. I just want to take the complexity out of worrying about the weather and just give you peace of mind. And if you're the couple, I want to pass that on to you through your through your awesome wedding event planner. It's kind of like a new frontier for weather forecasting. I don't think a lot of people provide this service for wedding planners, and in turn for their couples. So it's just, I mean, personally, I think the information is worth its weight in gold because of the way it's delivered. And that's the one thing missing. And I'm able to provide that to couples and give you peace of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't agree with you more. And really, it's like 1% of your budget, basically. I mean, I don't know what everyone's budget is, but it's a nominal fee in the grand scheme of things to be able to have this service. And I'm so glad, Kevin, that you brought up even setup, because one of the things that I know couples really get zoned in on is the actual wedding day itself. Well, to be clear, if you're hosting an event outside and it's on grass or turf or any surface really outdoors, and it rains 2 days before or 1 day before, well, how much did it rain? Some of these properties that are, some of the newer build properties, they have a really cool drainage system that's under where they host events, so it's able to dry off quicker, and some don't. So is that grass going to turn into mud? Is it going to not be conducive for your vendors to safely arrive and load in if you're doing a 2-day install? Sometimes decor requires that. And so it's important that, especially if you're getting into tenting, because I know a lot of times with contingency plans, you're having to put down a 50% deposit to reserve a tent structure. And then usually about, I don't know, every venue is different, but sometimes like the properties or the vendors, will have about a week prior that you have to make a call whether or not you're going to use that tent. So then you have to fork over the final 50% payment. And so understanding what the weather is looking like on the shoulder dates is also just as critical. And, Kevin, another thing that we always ask for, and I want to ask if it's included in your reports, I'm assuming it is, but is wind factor. So, we're in Florida, so we don't just worry about the weather for rain, we worry about wind, because we're putting a month up or, a structure out there for you to have your ceremony. And if it's 15-mile-per-hour winds outside, it's a safety hazard. So, it's not just about rain and can I have my event outside, it's also the safety for your guest and making sure that they have a comfortable experience and we're not going to have anything flying around on the actual day of the event. So does your report go into those specific details?
It absolutely does, and it gets very certain out to the 7-day period. And that includes from the day of setup. So whenever you have to set up those big outdoor tents and decorative, whatever it is, yes, absolutely. I can pinpoint forecast for wind for your location. That comes with the package.
That's really supportive, because I know vendors want us to make sure that they're setting up for success, and having that information is invaluable.
And I'm also glad you mentioned about how much is it, if it does end up raining at the venue, how much does it rain? That's actually another thing that I provide on the other side of what I can offer through WeatherPlan, which is live weather monitoring. I can use the radar service that I have to determine how much did it rain over your location, and let you know, okay, is it really muddy, or was it just like a light sprinkle, or you name it. But yeah, I have that data, radar estimated rainfall. I can get that for your specific location and relay that information to you.
Yeah, honestly, Kevin, I wish I had your services in my back pocket, because let me just say, I'm like, if the couple won't pay for it, I'm like, maybe the planner will, because to relieve our sense of stress on the day of, because I had a wedding towards the beginning of, I can't remember, towards the beginning of last year. I can't even remember what day we're in anymore. I feel like the years are just going by so fast. Crazy.
Right.
Anyway, last year we had a wedding where I swear to you, I will, when I wake up in the morning, I'm looking at the weather on a day of a wedding. It's 3:00 in the morning. We're loading in for hair and makeup. I'm looking at the weather. Okay, we're looking good, and I'm checking again. I swear this is like an all day thing for me. And, wasn't a cloud in the sky, 0%. Out of nowhere. And this is not a made up story, you guys. I did not bring this story to the podcast. This is real life, and anyone that works in the hospitality industry can vouch for this, especially if you plan in Florida. 0% chance of rain. We had 2 ceremonies that day. First ceremony went by beautifully, no problems, gorgeous. We're rebooting for the second ceremony, and literally out of nowhere, I see this dark cloud start to roll in, and you're like, I'm looking at the radar. There's nothing on the radar. There's nothing on the thing. And it's like, well, it's 0% chance rain. So I'm talking to the mom, because I hate having to pull clients in this discussion, but I'm talking to her because she texted me, hey, do you see this cloud? I'm like, yes, I definitely see it. And we talked about it, and we're like, okay, well, all the apps are saying it's going to be okay, but it does look a little scary. And so we kind of went for it with the understanding we had a backup. And so we had umbrellas for everyone on standby. We were ready in the off chance that it did rain. But towards the end of the ceremony, it absolutely did rain. It absolutely did rain. And one of the worst things that you can experience as a wedding planner is to have guests rained on. It's like your nightmare come to life. So thankfully we were towards the end and everyone got an umbrella, and we quickly moved them inside and it was fine. So you always have to have a plan B and C, but ultimately it still happened, and it otherwise could have maybe been prevented. And I just don't know, Kevin, is that something that's just normal that people will see? Oh, it's 0% chance of rain, and then all of a sudden because I just thought that was this bizarre experience.
Yeah, unfortunately with weather apps, it is all too common. I'll put it to you this way: if I had $1 for every time I heard, "Oh, you're a weatherman, you get paid to be wrong half the time," and I go, "Oh, I never heard that before, but I really have," and I think of why I hear that so many times. It's because of the weather app. It is.
Yeah.
It's far too common, and that's why That's why weather plan exists. I want to take that out of the equation because I can see that coming. I can see that coming on a radar. I can see that coming on my satellite feed because I have a full weather data subscription for both model data, satellite, radar data. I can see that stuff coming, and I know all the ingredients for that are required to cause that black cloud to form out of nowhere in the first place. So I'm seeing that. I can see that like up to 3 days ahead of time. And that's where that near-term forecasting really comes in handy, like, say, 2 or 3 days before the event, because I get really detailed in terms of pop-up showers or thunderstorms. I mean, we know that's all too common here in Florida, especially, right? Or any tropical wedding. It's the thunderstorm that comes up out of nowhere, blows in on the sea breeze, and bam, you got rain out of nowhere. Yeah. I'd take all that unknown out of the equation. It does happen.
Yeah, it happens.
And with weather plan, you will know before it happens. That's a guarantee. I've been able to do that. I actually, I'm trying to remember, I think it was last year, I was forecasting for a outdoor event. It was on a Sunday, and there was a setup period the day before, and it was kind of iffy on whether or not it was going to rain that day, and it wasn't looking too good. And so I was able to tell them, before that they had to set up their stuff, I said, hey, you know what? I see that rain coming. It's not going to be good if you set up. It's also going to be very windy. I know you got outdoor tent going on, and they were able to, at no cost, put off the event and set it for their contingency date. And the contingency date was perfectly sunny and not a problem. And it worked out. It was no headache. Like, okay, well, we're prepared for this. At least we didn't have all our stuff set up and then it rained and blew everything down. Nope. Totally saved the headache of having to pick up rain-soaked equipment and have just a smooth contingency to a day where it didn't rain and it went off without a hitch. So that's what I want to provide. That's exactly 100%. What I want to provide through Weather Plan to you as a wedding planner and to your clients, because couples shouldn't have to worry about the weather. They should just be focused on their special day.
So Kevin, I might have an ignorant question for you because again, I don't know anything about meteorology, and that's why I kind of brought you on here because I am so fascinated by what you do. Because you have this training, what do you have that the rest of us don't have? We have our weather apps and our radars.
Yeah.
Like, what are you looking at that's like, share with that a little bit with me, because I think that's where I'm like, well, what does Kevin have that we don't have that he's got access to?
I am so happy you asked that question. It doesn't get asked enough. First and foremost, it is the education. It is not easy. I had to learn way more math and physics than I wanted to, but really the most important things I learned is the conceptual understanding of how the atmosphere works and how interactions between, like in Florida, we got the sea breeze and the Gulf breeze, and when they collide, they blow up. So that sort of conceptual, I can paint a picture in my mind of what, I take a set of, I'll look at what's going on outside, like say right now, and then I can kind of project it forward in my mind and go, okay, I see a sea breeze forming, and it's a really hot and humid day. So that I can see pop-up thunderstorms already. And then from there, I'll go to my data, my weather data. I have access to raw weather model data. These are, they're called numerical weather models. And it's just a lot of mathematical equations that govern the atmosphere output into a picture form. And all different kinds of parameters like the wind, whether or not it's going to rain, high pressure, low pressure, you name it. All of this sort of pulled together into one sort of big picture that I can break down. And it gets very complex from there because, I mean, the atmosphere itself, like you have to treat it like one giant 3D sort of fluid. And it's very complex, but basically it's the weather data that I have available through weather models, especially some of the more short-term models that can like forecast for pop-up thunderstorms. That combined with the radar data that I have access to. It's called level 2 radar data. It's very it comes direct from both the National Weather Service radars that are set up all across the country, as well as what are some smaller radars known as terminal Doppler weather radars that are set up. There's one. There's actually one near Fort Lauderdale Airport and Miami Airport. You typically see them near airports. So I have access to all of that in one. So I'm able to see like what it looks like currently outside, and then using my data, I'm able, and my own understanding, I just project that forward in time. And that's like looking under the hood. Basically, that's how it works.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's so fascinating. I definitely would not at all be able to do that.
It's quite
That's
something.
crazy. Yeah.
I mean, you're literally predicting the future, and it's like meteorology is definitely like one of the newest areas of science. I mean, if you think about it, because the founding fathers of meteorology, that was in the I think 1880s. So, and we only keep all of our historical weather data records, like for hurricanes, for example, only go back to 1880. So it's a very young science, and we're learning a lot. And it's really all comes down to like computing power and like supercomputers and all that. But between that and just being able to conceptualize, like visualize what's going on in the atmosphere and how things interact and form storms or don't form storms, and project that forward, that's sort of like your under the hood look at how forecasting works for weather.
Got it. That is so cool. Thank you for sharing that. And Kevin, I'm curious, just for selfish reasons, are you from Florida? Do you live in Florida? Do you have any connections to Florida? Tell us.
Yes. Although I was originally born in New York, I have been living in Florida since age 4. It's when we moved down here. I grew up in Parkland, Florida.
You know the craziness. Yeah.
And I'm sure that's what stoked my passion for meteorology even more. I mean, my earliest memory in New York was the superstorm of '93, where we just got buried under like 8 inches of snow. I remember coming up to my chest. And then moving down to Florida, just watching thunderstorms literally pop up out of nowhere since, age 4. So yeah, I've grown up down here. I grew up in Parkland. I went to school down here, grade school through high school in Parkland and Florida State. So I'm very connected here in Florida. I completely, I know the state like the back of my hand. I mean, I'm a New Yorker at heart, but I've been living down here so long, I'm practically a Floridian. So.
Yeah, I feel like it's so funny. Anybody that's from New York has to give that disclaimer. They're like, still a New Yorker.
Exactly, right?
But I live in Florida, but I'm still a New Yorker. I have a lot of friends from upstate New York, so I totally get it.
I just call this New York with palm trees, really.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, especially the East Coast, you got 995. Like, everybody I know is like, oh, you're from New York? Where in New York are you from? Oh, I'm from Long Island. I'm from Long Island. Get out of here. And it's just this whole thing, right?
It's its own little world. It totally is. It's so funny. Yeah, jealous. Sure. I didn't get that. I'm a born and raised Floridian. I don't have any cool where else I was from. This is it. So, it's so funny, Kevin, because whenever we're doing destination weddings, which I want to talk about a little bit, that's a nice little segue into it. I was going to say, whenever we do destination weddings, we did one in California and we kept talking about plan B. And they're like, it's not going to rain. It's California. Yeah. And I'm like,
it's California.
So curious with destination weddings, because for couples, obviously we keep talking about Florida, but we support couples all over, whether you obviously can track all over. So assuming that your services can carry if somebody's hosting their event in Italy, if somebody's hosting their event in Mexico, doesn't matter. You're able to support them no matter what.
Yep. All I need is an internet connection. The model data that I have, the sort of under the hood discussion we had, I can forecast for any point on the globe. The only caveat is for live weather monitoring. There just needs to be radar services in that destination. So certain areas of Mexico may not have radar data coverage. So it may be hard to give day of live weather monitoring. But in terms of pre-event forecasting, anywhere in the globe, I can forecast for. That being said, there is a lot of radar coverage, like in Central Europe, Australia, you name it. There is a lot. So there are definitely options in terms of live weather monitoring, but definitely with the pre-event forecasting, anywhere in the world I can do it. You name it. except for Antarctica.
That's really
We
cool.
don't really have anything for Antarctica. So
Well,
as long as you're not having a wedding
that
down there,
disclaimer. I don't think that we're going to end up going to Antarctica.
Yeah.
Unless, unless that couple was really connected to that area.
So yeah, as long as we're not going to the South Pole, we're good to go.
Okay. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Kevin, we always kind of end each of our episodes by telling guests, you don't know what you don't know. Is there anything in particular outside of what we shared, or maybe just even highlighting something we brought up, that you feel like would be just a good takeaway or a good piece of advice to give couples who are considering either hiring your service or just in general planning for, a plan B potentially for their wedding?
I pose the question, what is peace of mind worth to you? Is it worth a few extra dollars? I would certainly believe so. That is my sole purpose with Weather Plan. I just want to pass on peace of mind to you, the wedding planner, and then you are able to pass on that peace of mind to the couple having the wedding, because the weather, it shouldn't be something you have to worry about. Let me worry about that. I'm going to make sure you have the day of your dreams. That's all I want you to have, and I'll worry about the weather stuff. That's Weather Plan in a nutshell. Everybody else, the TV meteorologists, the weather apps, they're forecasting for everyone, everywhere at one specific time that if it's not convenient for you, too bad. Me, I'm forecasting for you. That's Weather Plan in a nutshell.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kevin, for your time and your sharing your expertise. I really, really do appreciate it.
Oh, Brittany, thank you so much for having me on. I think this is awesome, and I am so looking forward to working with potential couples in the future. This would be great. I think it's a valuable service.
Absolutely, me too. Thank you so much, everyone, and hope you all enjoyed today's episode, and until next time.